always try to improve my efficiency and creative flow when making music. And one of the ways I use personally and teach to other music makers like you is to use a chord track to speed up your composing workflow. And the best part is that you can apply this method to any DAW you use. Let's go into action mode. Click that subscribe button to gain music superpowers. Alright, so first, what is a chord track? Well, basically it's a mock-up track that I keep at the top of all my projects to write my chord progressions in. Let me show you a practical example of the end result first. So this is a chord progression and it's actually 16 bars with each chord held for 2 bars. So as you can see above, I have also written labels to each of the individual chords so I can instantly see which chord is being played. Now let me play you through this chord progression, and I will actually turn on the metronome so you can hear the length of each chord and how it is played. Alright, so when you have recorded a chord progression on your chord track, how do you actually use it to benefit your workflow? Well, the first thing is that you now have a visual guide, which means you can see the actual chords and chord changes on the chord track using the labels for each clip, which is basically the same as having piano sheet music with the chords being written on top. This visual guide has increased my composing workflow incredibly much, and I know it can for you too, because whatever track you want to record, you will now always have the visual reference of this chord track here on top. So you can see the full chord progression with all the chord changes and exactly when they come. You then use the chord track to guide you when recording the bass line, the leading melody, hooks and motifs, rhythm piano, guitar, and basically any instrument except drums and percussion, of course. Another great workflow boost when you have your chord track with your chord progressions recorded and labeled like this is that you can easily copy the chord progression to a track in your project, like this. Select all, copy, paste, and drag to, let's say, your string track here. Then you can, for example, add an arpeggiator effect on this instrument, or go in and change up the MIDI in edit mode, like this. And here you can, for example, remove some notes or change the chord inversions and range of the chord by transposing some notes up or down an octave, like that. I'm sure you now have a better understanding of the super awesome benefits of using a chord track at the top of your project with the actual chord progressions recorded in MIDI as well as labeled above like this. Alright, so let's delete this, and now let me explain and show how to create a chord track from scratch. The first step is to create the track, which I have already done in my DAW template here. Then I simply name it Chords, and then I load up an instrument to this track. I usually like to go with a blend of strings and piano for the chord track. Why? Because strings are great for writing chord progressions, and piano adds the clarity of the chord changes, like this. So that is my personal choice for the chord track, but you can of course choose whatever you prefer. Since this is a temporary track, which means it is only meant to be used as a tool for composing the real production, I usually load a very light instrument on this track to save on the CPU and memory on my computer. It does not need to sound awesome. Practical and efficient is the goal here. The main purpose of the chord track is to serve as a visual guide and also help you in composing the full production. Next is of course to write the actual chord progression. And there are many ways you can do this. My main tool is my master MIDI keyboard, because I actually do play the piano and keyboard decently well at least. If you choose to do it this way, you simply record the chord progression using sustained chords with your MIDI keyboard. By this I mean that you don't add any rhythm or fillers at all. Simple sustained chords until the chord changes. Think of it almost like actual music sheets to write music. You might have noticed that the chords are always on top of the piano notes on most of the sheet music with popular songs. That's the analogy here. You write the chord progressions on top of your project as a visual guide to speed up your composing process. Now let me record a simple chord progression live to show you my process. First I set the tempo, and you can actually turn the tempo down temporarily to make it easier to record your chord progression. Then I turn on the metronome or click track, and I like to start to record a 8-bar chord progression, like this. And you always seem to get some extra wrong notes by accidentally hitting them with your fingers. And you also need to make the chords sustain for a full bar and be of equal length. So I go into the edit mode, and then I look for those accidental notes like this one, mark and delete, another one over here, mark and delete. And then I choose Command A to select all, and now I want to make every note 1 bar in length. And in the DAW I use, which is Propeller Head Reason, there is a tool for this in the tool window. As you can see here, if you go to note length, now when I have every note selected, I use a fixed length of, and this number corresponds to 1 bar, or bars, quarter notes, 16th notes, and ticks. So I want 1 bar of length. And look what happens if I click apply. Amazing, isn't it? So now we have a full chord progression that is played with sustained chords for 1 bar each. However, if you are not that advanced in your playing skills on the MIDI keyboard, you can write your chord progressions in other ways. The most obvious way is of course to simply write in the notes using your mouse and keyboard. Start by creating a new part. Let's delete this one for now. Use the pen tool to make an 8-bar part, and then simply use the pen tool again to write in the notes like this. Oh, that's low. Let's go on to C. I don't usually work this way, so it's a bit strange for me. So now that's a C major chord for a full bar. The final method I have tried personally is to use a plugin on your chord track that makes it possible for you to write chord progressions using only 1 key at a time on your MIDI keyboard. You have to check if you have such a plugin in your DAW. I know Logic Pro X has this, and Reason, which I use right now, also has this feature. I'm sure most DAWs has a method to do this. So to do this in Reason, you open up the browser, and then you go here into the player's devices. And this is the device you want to use, the Scales and Chords plugin. So simply drag that on top of your chord track, And now I can play chords with one key on my MIDI keyboard, like this. Now I play the key C. And as you can hear, that's a C chord. And now I play G. That's a G chord, and so on. The main downside using this method is that you actually only record one note at a time in the sequencer. And that takes away one of the main advantages, which is that you can use the chord progression track to copy and paste the chords into different real tracks in your production. So if I record something on the chord track using this plugin, let's play C and G. You can see that it only recorded one note, the C note and the G note, and the actual player device. Let me show you how that looks. Alright, so here is the Scales and Chords plugin applied to the chord track below. So if I play the C note on my MIDI keyboard, you can see that I play it here. It translates it to C major. And if I play the G note, it translates it into G major. An important note that you need to think about is that you do need to know what scale your song is in, because what you set your scale to will actually affect what the chord translation will be. So if I play E, let's say Spanish chord, and play an E here, it plays it like that. But if I play an E using the C harmonic minor, plays, well, there's no E in this scale at all, so I need to change it to another note, let's say that one, and you can see it translates into this using the C harmonic minor scale. Alright, so now we're back to C major again. So if I play the C note, it translates into the C major chord, and the G note translates to G major because I used the C major scale. So those are the chords in that particular scale for these notes. But it only recorded the single notes in the sequencer. I want to record the full chord when I press a key. So how do we solve this? Well, there is actually a function for this in this specific plugin. Up here it says direct record. So if you pull that on, and let's go back to the sequencer so I can show you this. Let's delete this part. So now if I play those two keys again, the C note on my MIDI keyboard and the G note on my MIDI keyboard, let's check out what happens. As you can see, it recorded the full chords with all notes, so I can still use this method using a plugin like this to record my chord progression on the chord track, which I then can use as a visual guide if I simply mark them apart like this and add labels to them like C major and apply labels here, G major. Now I can see the chord progression, and I can also copy, paste, and use the chord progression on, for example, the string part here. Alright, now I want to hear from you. Have you ever used the chord track method to speed up your music composing workflow? Or do you have any more tips related to this method? Please share your thoughts in a comment below. I'm Mike, showing you behind the scenes of how I compose music faster and in a more efficient way, because you rock, my friends. If you enjoy my creative content and want to support my epic journey, please join my VIP community on Facebook. It's 100% free and you will connect with me and my amazing community.